Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Engage to Succeed third podcast. We are on number 3 now, and number 3 is a very special podcast for me because I've got my first ever client that I got when I set up the business last year. So it's really exciting to be having this conversation with Saskia. We're going to be talking quite a lot today about the journey that Saskia has been through. She's going to give you some views, some thoughts, some insights into how she's using the Engage to Succeed model, the impact it's had, and hold on to the end because right at the end we're going to be talking about some tips and hints on some of the things that you can do to start loving your job more every day. First of all, Saskia, welcome to the Engage to Succeed podcast. I'm glad you've taken the time to join me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. But before we dive into that, do you want to give a brief introduction to yourself?
Absolutely, James. Very nice to meet everybody here today. So my name is Saskia. I work as an account manager in the talent assessment space, and I'm really lucky to have great clients that I work with that inspire me with their passions and their values to do great things in the world. I'm a very passionate and energetic human being. My other coach, Anna, calls it my Saskia Sparkle. And I am lucky to be the mum of an equally high energy and engaging son. He inspires me to be my best self. And so the reason why I've sort of engaged with James and my general interest in personal development is that I'm really looking to be a really engaged and active mum, and he really does inspire me to do better and love life more every day. Definitely fit in with the tagline there, James, for sure. At the moment, I'm sort of focusing on key areas of my life, and at the moment, I've invested in a health coach as well because I want to be more active. And what's really inspired me to consider that, whereas if you told me about a year ago I'd be running, I would have laughed at you. Is that within my company's women's ERG group, we've been talking a lot around menopause and the impact that has. And whilst I'm not there yet, I would really like to be focusing on that to sort of reduce the impact that it's going to have later on in life.
Very good. And look, just to echo some of the things that you said, Saskia, we've obviously been through the engagement coaching, so creating your engagement journey process together. And it's been great fun working together. You know, your energy that you bring to stuff and the conversations and debate that we've had along the way has just been unbelievably great fun. Not only were you my first client, but it was a pleasurable first client to work with, and we certainly had some fun. So you mentioned, actually, it's quite an interesting segue that you mentioned that you've got a like a coach in Anna that you've developed the Saskia Sparkle with, which was great. You've just found yourself a health coach, which is also great as somebody that spends a lot of time on their fitness and health. Engagement coaching, let's say, is a relatively new concept. What was it? What was it that you kind of thought, oh, that's interesting? And why did you decide that you needed some sort of more engagement coaching to support the other coaching you were doing?
So at the time I was working with Anna. She's more of a personal development, women's focused coach. And that's more about lifestyle and understanding myself better as a woman. Whereas I was really at a bit of a crossroads. I've been going for a lot of change last year, and where it came to the workplace, I was just really unsure what was sort of inspiring me. And as you can see, I've got a lot of energy, and I had a lot less energy last year before I came and spoke to yourself, James. And so one of my colleagues, Ashtay, he had actually mentioned the work that you were doing, and we had a conversation internally. He's like, go and check out James. And I was like, who's James? And I went on the website, and I'm not going to lie, the branding was what sold it for me. Not only was it, my colleague's recommendation, but it was also the branding. It really popped and stood out to me. And I was like, okay, I'm really going to give this a go. Where it sort of aligns with the work that I've already been doing with Anna, I felt that it was like, how can I bring this all together around what I already know about myself? So like I speak about my Saskia sparkle, I sort of align that to my own personal values,
Yep.
but also how can I bring this to align to the workplace? And so I wanted to kind of cinch that in a little bit more. And so I thought, all right, I'll give this a gamble. And I reached out to James.
Cool. I'm pleased that you found the website engaging or colourful. You know, clearly a lot of what we talk about in your engagement journey is the engage to succeed model, and the engage to succeed model underpins everything that we talk about. Not only with you developing your engagement journey, but also the work that we do with clients around engage to lead and engage to succeed. When you first saw that the model or the engage to succeed model, what were your initial thoughts about it, and what was it that sort of made you think, okay, or that classic light bulb moment?
I think that I've actually, like, I can see it up on my wall. I have it with me all the time. I've even got it in my diary. So it sits there very front and center in my diary. I've got a special spot for it. And for me, I like the simplicity of it because it was in sort of the four squares. I should probably flash it up, shouldn't I, James? Just to show everybody. And it's simply
There
just
it is.
the simple way of it being able to kind of acknowledge where I'm at. And so
Yeah.
when it comes to passion, I'm generally a very passionate person. And so I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. And then if we talk about performance, I like to perform at a very high level. I am I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm working on it. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm really trying to make sure that I perform at a really acceptable level,
Yeah.
because it sort of holds so much weight for me personally. And so when I saw this and I went, but I'm not feeling as productive as I could be. And looking at those two areas and how they relate to productivity, I went, oh, hang on a minute. I like this. This is simple. It's easy to use and it's easy to navigate with.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what sort of
Yeah.
for me.
And just for those that haven't maybe seen the model, when we talk about productivity, Saskia mentioned there's two parts to the model, and the model is based on passion and performance. We talk very much around the four levels, but flying high is where we believe true engagement sits. And when you're flying high, you have high levels of passion, high levels of performance that therefore leads to high levels of productivity. And lots of surveys out there, Gallup is one of the biggest providers out there. They say that an engaged employee, so someone that is flying high, is 21% more productive than other people in the business, and that's a huge stat. Because if you think about it, that's almost like you're doing an extra day's work compared to other people that aren't engaged. And that's not that you're doing an extra day's work, as in you're working an extra 7.5 hours a week. It just means that you are more efficient, you're more effective, and therefore you're more productive. So great to hear that was one of the key things that kind of brought you into it. And why was it? Why was it so useful? I mean, I can see that you've got it in your diary, you've got it on your wall. I've got it on my wall. I've got it everywhere in my house, clearly, because it's my model. It's really important that the model is visible to you, yes, but why is it so useful?
I think what made it so useful is that I was absolutely stuck in a rut and I was a bit
Right.
confused as to
Yeah.
why I was in there because
Yeah.
I'm generally a highly passionate person and I like to perform at a high level. So I was a bit confused as to what was keeping me in that space. Then I'd sort of fall into the roller coaster category and be like, well, some days are okay and some days are less okay. And then I navigated through by doing the work with yourself, James, where I got to on the up. And I was like, cool, okay, we've navigated through this. I understand where I'm at. And then we had this great conversation, sort of, I think, towards the end of the year, or maybe earlier this year, actually, where you were like, well, what's it going to take to be flying high? I said, I don't know, James. Like, I don't think I've ever been flying high. And you really explained to me what flying high looked like. And I went, okay, this is me trying to overachieve on the flying high. So I realized that actually I was in a flying high state earlier in the year where I thought I was just on the up because I didn't have I felt like I wasn't performing maybe as much as I should be. And so I really felt I was in that category. And when you sort of explain like what the criteria was to perform well and to be very passionate, I was like, oh, well, I fit that criteria. It's like, so you're flying high. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, all right, I'm flying high.
yeah,
So I sort of accepted that I was in fact flying high, where I'd set myself such a high level
yeah.
to achieve. And it also made me realize that I was in control. I think
Mhm.
that you can blame a lot around circumstances, situations. And I listened to this really interesting podcast by Marissa Peer, and she talked a lot about how critical it is to be careful about the words that you're using and what you're saying and what you're telling yourself. And so I really took that on board. I listened to this podcast, wrote like 9 pages of notes, and realized actually, I'm in control of this. I get to choose how passionate I am. I get to choose my performance level, and I get to choose who I bring to my life and who I bring to the company that I'm working with as well. And it's completely shifted where I was last year to where I am now. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have worked with you and actually be able to see that and see the improvement that it's made.
Yeah. And look, we'll talk about some of the outcomes in a second, Saskia. But it's so true that actually a lot of the time people don't realise that they are in control of. They're in control of their actions, but they're in control of their own engagement. They're in control of everything that actually is going on in their life. And sometimes it is. It's I've heard it so many times. Hit the pause button, stop, reflect, and think. And then actually, when you start doing that, you realise, hang on a minute, this maybe isn't even my thought. This is somebody else who's driving this negativity. And again, I talk about it a lot with companies. The whole engagement piece is very contagious. So if you've got a highly engaged manager, invariably when you look at their team are often highly engaged. If you have a disengaged manager, guess what? Their team are going to always struggle to become engaged because their manager is disengaged. It's the old, I say it's the old saying. The saying I love when I talk to companies about this is, and the managers as well, is, I use the phrase, one dead battery can't jumpstart another. But it's so true. And you actually mentioned your son earlier on in this conversation, and it's so true. I look at my relationship sometimes with my kids, and if I'm down, I'm grumpy, I'm stressed or whatever, the way that I react to my kids is very different to if I'm loving my life more every day. And so actually those external influences, they happen not only at work but also outside of work as well in your personal life. So it's about it's really about stopping yourself, and actually the model helps you do that. And it's really interesting what you said around the you were I'm going to use the word beating yourself up because you weren't flying high, but actually then when we talked about it, you were. And this is the kind of conversation that again, a number of people that I've been coaching as well have said the same thing. It's changed their conversation, it's changed their communication with their manager.
Yeah.
Because actually, they're sort of sitting there and they might be in the same position as you, but actually having that conversation with the manager will sit there, exactly as I said to you, Saskia, at the beginning of the year. The manager will sit there and say, actually, look, no, your performance is great. And that was part of our conversation, wasn't it? You were sitting there going, I got this amazing feedback from my company and my client and my stakeholders. And I'm sitting there going, what? But why are you saying you're not performing when you're getting that feedback? And it was amazing. And you just, you lit up when we had that conversation. But there are so many people out there that are on this, are on a roller coaster ride. I presented at an event last month, and I did a presentation of the model at the event. And it was all anonymous. And I asked people, I did a survey, and I asked people, where did they sit on the model?
Yeah.
60%, and the audience was probably just over 100 people, right? But 60%, I think it was 59 point something percent, but 60% of the people that were in that room said they were on a roller coaster ride. Now, that was quite a stark figure, really. I wasn't expecting it to be that high. And then when I was talking to people and I was asking, why, often it was literally, it related back to not having effective conversations with their manager, or it related back to workload, or it related back to, you know, heading towards burnout, or, I'm doing this stuff that isn't part of my job. And actually, simple communication can often help overcome that. And I know we talked about that quite a lot when we were working together as well. So look, really great that I'm hearing all this stuff, because that's the purpose of the process that I go through with people. We talked about, and we've had some great conversations, Saskia, about some of your outcomes that you've had from it. So after kind of the 4 sessions that we do together, or that we did together, how has it helped you as an individual, and sort of what are some of the key outcomes that you've seen, and some of the changes that you've seen having been through the process?
I would definitely say that I'm very lucky to have an amazing manager. She makes such a difference
Yeah.
in the way that I am in the workplace, and I can be really open with her. I have done, as I mentioned with my previous coach, Anna, I'd actually done some enhanced awareness programs. So really building up my self-awareness, and I'm able to articulate what's going on. So I might be frustrated about something, but I'm able to also say, but don't worry, I'm just being frustrated. Don't do anything about this.
Yeah.
I know what I need to do in order to change that, either for myself, or I'm
Yeah.
really clear to go, no, something much broader needs to change, but we don't have enough information to make that change, because if it's just affecting me, I need to look at maybe how I'm being part of this sort of situation, or versus have we got enough information from others to see if it's a more broader thing that we can actually make a better process in shifting this, and it's better for everybody. So she really gives me that safe space to do that, and I have shared my model with her and really let her see, this is what drives me. And she also actually identified that even before I'd showed her the model. So she'd said to me, you're really interested in processes and solving for problems. I was like, yeah, like that's in my thing. Like, let me show you this thing that I've been doing with James. And I was able to have that really interesting conversation with her. So I've noticed a real shift in the conversations I'm having internally, but at work, but also for myself more broadly in my life. I'm really able to be more aware of where I'm at. And like you said, when you're low in other areas, it can come out in those conversations with your children. And children are allowed to experience a range of emotions with people.
Yeah.
Like, that's just life. But I stop myself now and I think, well, what's going on? What is actually triggering this situation? Something that I've been focusing on more recently, as I've sort of focused on health, and particularly women's health, is tracking cycles and understanding which week I'm in order to sort of identify where I am on the model as well. So I think James you were quite surprised when I was like, I've been using the model in this way and I've been linking it to my cycles. And you're like, what?
It's a really interesting point, though, because and I know we had a really quite long discussion about it, didn't we? And I was like, this is like amazing. I mean, you mentioned menopause earlier, and I know menopause in the workplace is becoming a really big topic. And certainly before I set Engage to Succeed up, when I was in the corporate world, there was loads of stuff that organisations are doing to help women through menopause, which is fantastic. But the cycle piece is something that I've never heard of. Until we had that conversation, I was like, my God, it kind of was almost a bit of a revelation for me, because I could see examples, and I could see situations that I'd come across. It's another great topic that probably organisations should start talking about. But it's another thing that I think really needs more visibility in the workplace. It's a fascinating topic, and one that I've never heard of. So again, you enlightened my world when we had that conversation.
And I did also challenge to say, do men have cycles? Did a little bit more research into that. And it's actually around that. I think that what I read, and please don't quote me on this, even though I'm saying this on the podcast, is that I think that the men's testosterone, it's within a day. It's actually you cycle within a day, as opposed to women cycling within the various weeks. And so that was quite interesting as well, and how that cycle works well with a 9 to 5 working day. And I was like, wow, this is really quite interesting. So I need to dig into that a little bit more,
Yeah.
to be honest speak more eloquently to it. But it was certainly something that I thought was quite interesting. And yes, I do give my manager a heads up. I'm like, I'm coming into week 4. I'm really sorry.
No, it's a fascinating topic. So, but yeah, again, it's something else that came out of. I'm not going to take any credit for it because I'd never even thought about it, Saskia. But it's amazing how suddenly, and I've had more conversations with this with clients and what have you. Actually, the model can be used in such a multitude of different ways. And actually actions or environments, or even somebody was talking to me. They work for a consumer company, and he was saying, look, I can actually place, like they sell, I won't tell you who they are, but they sell drinks, and I'll just leave it at drinks. And he said I could place all of the drink brands in each of the different levels of the model. So some drink brands are flying high, and we can't get them in and on the shelf quick enough, because by the time we do, they're off. Other ones, they're kind of coming, they're on a bit of a roller coaster, because it depends on the season, or it depends on the weather, or it depends on this, or it depends on that. And then he said others are just stuck in a rut that they've gone out of fashion. So that, we just need to get them out and get them sold and get them off the shelf, kind of thing. So it is amazing how the model can also be utilized in a variety of different ways. We digress, Saskia. Back to outcomes.
So I think that I sort of had given the examples of how I was now able to see that I was flying high. I work a little bit too much, and generally when I'm quite passionate about something, I work even more. So I am finding that balance a lot more. And when I don't have that balance, so I journal quite regularly, and so I sort of track what status I'm at based on the model. And so if I notice that, I'm sort of on the up, or I'm a bit on the roller coaster, I'm sort of questioning why, and I look at various areas of my life to go, well, why am I dipping into that roller coaster? Is it just that time in my cycle, or is it actually something that's going on personally or even professionally that is linking to that? And where can I bring in that change to get me back into that flying high category where I know I've been, and I know what that feels like now. And now that I know what it feels like, I'm able to go, well, hang on a minute, I'm not up there, and I want to get back there. How can I do that?
Yeah, perfect. And we talked about some of the other things that you've developed. Obviously, the cycle week was one, but we talked about some of the other things that you've developed as well that help you. You touched on kind of the model and your journaling. You also created a bookmark, didn't you?
I did. I'm trying to find it very quickly because I don't know where I put my
I've thrown
bookmark.
that on you, Saskia, but
I didn't have that prepared. I'm so sorry. I
that's
don't
all
know
right.
where it's gone.
And you talked as well about, you talked there, and don't worry about the bookmark, but you talked about the balance, and it's really important that I talk about it a lot as well. That says, what is the balance that you have between work and home? How has it helped you? I know you kind of said it's helped you with the balance piece, but what is it that you've now started doing that you weren't doing before that's also helped you with that balance?
So I think that when we'd worked in, I think, our third session, we talked about the stair-step model. And
Yeah.
one of the key things on that step was healthy boundaries around work. And
Yeah.
so I really thought about what that meant for me. And I worked with a friend who I'm really grateful to. And he gave me, all the sort of the basics. I had to go right back to basics to be like, right, what are these boundaries? What does that look like? What is the criteria? And so one of them is making sure I take my lunch break. I am allowed to take a lunch break. And so reminding myself that I was able to do that. But equally, what's really beneficial is now that I've brought in a health coach to work with, I now make sure that I do my exercise if I can in the morning, if I know that the day is going to be a bit busy or there's work travel and things like that. But I generally try and fit that into the middle of my day for my lunch. And so I'll bring in exercise into that, and I'll also bring in my healthy eating as well. So my coach, Josie Lloyd, she focuses on women's health and finding a balance in life. So looking at food, looking at lifestyle, but also exercise as well. As my son has asked me to do a Spartan race. He has been racing Spartan since he was 4, and has always been like, Mummy, come on, do a race. And I'm like, over my dear body, have you seen me? I can run like for a minute. good. And so I was really inspired by him because he was like, come on, mummy, I really want to see you race. And so I thought, well, I'm going to work with the best. And here we are. So I'm on
Nice.
starting my journey.
Yeah, yeah. And boundaries are so important, aren't they? Again, it was another topic that we talked about quite a lot during the process because it's very easy, especially when we think about, I don't like to mention 2020 too much, but when we think about the changing environment that we work in now, you know, you and I are both clearly working from home today. And, this is it's almost like it's the new norm for a lot of people. Not everybody, because some people still like to go into the office. But the challenge with working from home, and this is something that, I've noticed and I noticed when I was managing big teams, the challenge of working from home is that at the end of the day, you kind of close down your laptop and you walk down the stairs if you're lucky enough to have an office upstairs. If you're not, you close down your laptop and you walk, from the kitchen to the lounge or wherever it is,
Yeah.
wherever you're working, but you have no downtime to stop and think and process what's happened in the day. And so therefore boundaries become even more important because you don't have that commute. I think back to, the days of working in London as an example, and your boundaries were getting your train home. And where I lived when I worked in London, there was only one train an hour, so I had to be on that train. Whereas when it reversed to working from home, there is no train to get. Sometimes you collect your child from school, or you've got to do an activity, or take them somewhere, or do something. Invariably, I know a lot of people that if they're taking their child to an after school club, as an example, swimming or sport or whatever it might be, often I talk to them about it, and they're literally closing their laptop down, grabbing their keys, and running out the door. And you sit there and go, then you think about that journey to whatever with the child and the parent's still thinking about work, and they've had no transition. Boundaries are a really important thing, especially in the environment that we work in today, which is that it's very much a hybrid working situation. So cool. And look, Saskia, this has been a really interesting conversation. I knew it would be because of all the coaching that we did and the great conversations that we had when we were doing the engagement coaching. For those that are listening, I said right at the start, you're going to share some tips and some hints. What would be the big tips and the big hints that you would give kind of those that are listening advice on, or things that you've done that have really made a massive difference? Because you have, since we started talking, not only are you spending more time flying high, you've got pulled into new projects at work. You aced that project, so you've been given another project. Your day job is now not 100% day job. It's less. So, what should you do?
Well, the obvious answer is come and work with you, of course, James. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you, and the conversations that we've had and the model that you follow has really inspired me to really think about what it is that I'm doing, where I'm at on the model. And I think checking in with that daily, weekly, getting a good gauge of where you're at and understanding what those influential factors are, or what you can do to shift that so you are back into that flying high space. And you could be in different stages of that model in different areas of your life, and that's absolutely fine. Like, that's the beauty of life, and of course we would expect that. I think the other thing would be journaling. I really, really value journaling. I found my bookmark, and so
Hey.
it says take a moment, and I've got my statuses on there. And a really key thing that I like to measure when I am doing my journaling is my gratitudes. That is something I also focus on with my son. And so as a regular practice, even got a reminder on Alexa. She's like, "Are you grateful for today?" And he's like, and I was like, "Come on, yeah, mummy, I like that one, but just put it like he did this and she like it likes to shift it." And
Yeah.
so we each have our gratitude jars. And I think that that's a really key practice to be grateful for what you do have, because we can sometimes lose sight of that. And I certainly did at various times, and that absolutely had an impact on where I was on the model. And I do think that really end the day doing stuff that you love. I think that that is sort of the key thing there, is that if you're not doing those things that you love and that you enjoy and spending time with those people that lift you up and bring you into that flying high space,
Yeah,
then you start to see things in a different way, and make sure that you're seeing the actual truths there that are there. So
yeah.
be my key takeaways.
And look, I love that last one because, if we go back to the discussions that we've had around, or when you think about the working from home scenario, you close your laptop down, you go downstairs. If you finish the day doing something that is tedious, that you don't really enjoy, you naturally take that emotion and that feeling and that sense out of where you're working into your family life. So, I love that fact that you finish the day doing something you love. It's one of my big takeaways. I always say to people, start the day and finish the day, your working day, doing the things that you love. Start it because it motivates you for the day, and finish it because you feel like you've finished the day flying high. And then you go into the evening to do all the stuff that you want to do in your personal life, and you're in a much better mood. I love that. Saskia, look, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure working with you because, clearly we've had some really great conversations and some real fun debates throughout the 5 sessions that we've had together. I'm so grateful, the gratitude piece. I'm so grateful for you taking the time to share your experience. Because there's no better way to promote what you do by hearing from those that have been through it. So I'm very grateful for you for doing that. And most importantly, and this is the key for me, most importantly, we've been working together since, I want to say, November last year. The journey that we've been through together, and to see you go through that journey and see the things that have changed in your life and the things that have changed at work, and the person that you now are is just amazing. And I always say engagement is owned by the individual. I help people to understand that, but to actually see you go through that journey, take ownership of some of the things that we talked about, go and take positive conversations to your manager and share all that great stuff. And the impact it's had has been amazing. As I said, you've been given 2 new projects. You've got, you're really focusing on stuff outside of work. You've set your boundaries. You're a much, I can say that you've now got that Saskia sparkle
Yes.
really back. Not to say that you didn't have it at the start, but you've really come out of yourself, and it's amazing to see that transformation. A big well done to you, because you've really embraced the journey that we've been on. So if people are listening and they'd like to find out more about what I do and what we do at Engage to Succeed, then by all means get in contact with me. And I can share in more detail the journey that I went through with Saskia, and hopefully I can help you to love your life or love your job more every day, depending on what's going on in your world at the moment. Saskia, it's been great fun. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I no doubt we'll talk again, not on a podcast, but just general catch-ups, just to see how you're developing. But thank you very much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure. For those that are watching these podcasts, the next one that I will be doing is probably going to be more just a conversation that I will have with myself. Or actually, I might actually have somebody interview me. So I'm working through that at the moment, but it might be quite an interesting one if someone does interview me on kind of why I set the business up, how it's going, what's changing, what's new coming down the line, etc. As this space, the next one will be coming out probably end of August, I would imagine. But thank you for listening. Saskia, thank you for joining me. It's been great fun and a real pleasure to have you on. And I hope everybody has a great day and finds something to help them to love their life more every day. Thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye.